Welcome to a question in which we are graphing roses. Each of these graphs, as it's a row, these are called roses. We're supposed to match up, and there's one down here. These five roses with these various equations for the roses. How does it work? Well, this is where I encourage you to go to your exam notes. I'm sorry, your 10.345 notes. These notes right here on this section. And so these notes are at the top of the module 5. If you go on down and you find the polar graphs, number 5, it shows you all you need to know how to graph polar graphs. So let me switch back over to this version where I can write on it. Here it is. Okay, so here's number 5 from your notes, polar graphs. And we're down here with the roses. But first, notice up here, polar graphs with cosine. Well, here, let's first just start with the basic rows. So what are roses? So these shapes, basically you could have sine or cosine. If n is an odd number, then you have n leaves. If it's even, you have double that. In other words, if you have cosine 2 theta, you have 4. 2 goes to 4. If you have cosine 4 theta, you notice you have 8 leaves. 4 leads to 8, 2 leads to 4. See that? You double. Whereas if you have, this is 3 theta, you have exactly 3. And if it's 5 theta, you have exactly 5. So see how the odd numbers, that's the exact number of leaves you have. If you have 5 theta, you're going to have 5 leaves. 3 theta, you're going to have 3 leaves. But if it's even, it's going to double. If you have 2 theta, you have 4 leaves. 4 theta, you have 8 leaves. So that's what these examples are showing you down here. That's what it says over here. You have double if they're even, same number if they're odd. Okay, now there's one other important fact, and that's really mentioned up here. Polar graphs with cosine always center on the x-axis. See how like this cosine graph here is centered on the x-axis, or even for leaves, this is a cosine. See how it's centered? The x-axis, it goes right through the center. Same thing, cosine, x is right through the center. These are all cosine roses. So the x is going right through the center of one of the leaves. Whereas sine always centers on the y-axis. See how this is a sine graph? It's centered on the y-axis. Except for roses. That's what I want you to see. Of the form sine. So sine roses, of which there's no examples down here, which may or may not, they may or may not center on the y-axis, but they never center on the x. So that's the crucial piece. So let me say that again. Cosine always centers on the x. Y usually centers on the y. Except for roses, the y's may or may not, the sine may or may not center on the y, but it for sure won't center on the x. That's how you tell them apart. All right, we'll see. So we go through this example. All right, so we see this one here. This has 3 branches. So we're looking for something with 3. There it is. So that's pretty easy start, right? That's got to be cosine of 3 theta. Check that one off. 3 branches. How many we got here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, that's easy. That's got to be cosine 7 theta. So those are odd. Odd numbers match exactly. This is easy so far. Let's try this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 petals on that rose. So 12 petals, it's got to be a sixer. Uh-oh, we have 2 sixers. Is it cosine or sine? How do you know which one? Well, do you see how, here's the x-axis. Do you see how this leaf right here is centered on the x-axis? Centered on the x-axis. So it's cosine of 6 theta. Remember, it doubles. 6 theta doubles for 12 leaves. It's cosine. Cosine, that's what I was telling you down here in the notes. Cosine centers on the x-axis. So it's the cosine one. Check. All right, next one. This one, how many leaves are here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's got to be a 4 theta. Only got 1, cosine 4 theta. course, it is centered on the x-axis, so it works. Now, we only got one left. It's got to be this one, but let's go through the thinking anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 petals, so it's got to be a 6 theta. And notice there, the petal is not centered on the x-axis, right? Here's the x-axis. There's no petal that goes through the middle of. There's no petal centered on the x-axis. So it's not cosine, right? Remember what I said down here? Sine theta may or may not be centered on the y, but never center on the x-axis, right? Never centers on the x-axis. So this is sine. This is sine of 6 theta, which is our one other option, of course, anyway. We knew it for that reason too, but it may not always be the last one for you. So sine of 6 theta, because it's not, there's no petal centered on the x-axis. So there